Hello, everybody. This is Brutally Honest Talk Radio. This is Elmo the Conservative, and we're doing another episode here. And I have a first time guest that goes by the name of JD Mass. And he's going to talk to us about a few things, including his background, a book that he has out related to race. We're going to talk about reparations. And he knows Nelly, the rap artist, personally because they're from the same town of St. Louis.
Yeah,
So, yeah, let's get started. JD Mass, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Good to have you. All right. Yeah, so you're from St. Louis, and you can talk about that and your background. I mostly wanted to go into your book that you have out called Race for What,
Yeah,
and to describe that and tell people what that's about.
sure. So, my background, real quick, growing up in St. Louis, I grew up in a part called University City. And at that time, it was the only diverse part of St. Louis, mainly. And so, having that experience, my parents purposely wanted to raise me in and around Black community for an experience they never had and to help raise their children not to be racist because they recognized a system that kind of helped us all become racist. And so in that process, in having a lot of Black friends, I got to experience what life was like, sort of in their shoes, not completely, because I could always, you know, maintain my whiteness outside of hanging out with them. I got to see the difference between the two worlds. And in that, I really wanted to understand why prejudice existed, why bigotry existed, why was discrimination such a part of our culture, and get a better clue as to what was the psychology and emotions behind that, and what led us to build such a world, so to speak, and a culture.
Yeah.
And so as I went through life and went through various different communities, I also started a doctorate, or earned my doctorate in organizational psychology, which teaches about how cultures developed from the psychology of group thinking and whatnot. And I put that together in my book. And so half of my book is stories of my journey. The other half of the book is 7 steps to healing the harms of our culture. And that 7 steps is a process that I went through and that I think is easy enough to grasp, or simple enough to grasp. I won't say easy because making change is never easy, but simple enough to grasp conceptually. And as you mentioned, part of that, one of those steps, step number 5, is reparations. And that is a very key component to my heart, for sure.
Yeah, I know that the book, there's supposed to be some talk about things that can be done to fight racism, and I have my own ideas about that, and I want to hear what yours are. My thinking and my philosophy is basically in raising people right, and with parents and teachers, preachers, any leaders in the community, teaching people to judge folks as individuals, not prejudging. Sometimes the bad apples can spoil the bunch, and so people come in contact with different races, and they may have a negative experience, and then want to attach that to everybody in the race or in the group. I
Right.
can say, me myself, being from Detroit, Michigan, there was a heavy Arab community, and it seemed like all the Arabs that I was meeting were mean or bad or just scandalous. And so I had to fight that because that was me having those feelings were contradictory to the way that I was raised. And I just had to keep reminding myself that, you know, there's got to be good Arabs. I just haven't met any yet. All races have good people and bad people, and so this is the truth about how it is. And then, basically, I think that many of us can forget sometimes, just lining up with Martin Luther King's philosophy, treating people by the content of the character and not the color of their skin,
Yeah.
and that's really how everyone wants to be perceived, for things to kind of have a fair perspective or setup from the beginning, from the first square. That of you go into a relationship with a person with what you think you know about them, which is bad,
Right.
especially when it's something negative.
Right. And look, I think segregation and integration flow naturally. I think
Mhm.
the problem is we've had segregation weaponized. And what I mean by that is we've been shown a lot of negative behaviors about other cultures without also being shown the entire package, right? And so then
Yeah.
we don't have that experience, and this is what we're shown on TV or in our education systems or whatnot, then we're fed these preconceived notions and we think we know that. And now we come and we bring that to our interactions, not even understanding that that's kind of been built into us. And so that's a very difficult thing to break. And it keeps us separated when we need to be together on issues that are more humanistic, that across color, across race, across ethnicities and genders, we actually want for ourselves, just to have certain levels of comfort, to share and support one another. To these humanistic things happen across political parties and whatnot, but we have been taught to sort of be so competitive that we see so much as an enemy or as trying to hurt us, or we're fearful and whatnot. And it comes from these lack of experiences of really learning other cultures and being able to be curious and appreciative of those other cultures. And I think that's
Yes.
part of what my goal is.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, and I think the media has played a big part in perpetrating racism, with
For
showing
sure.
this unbalance.
Mhm.
And with, especially the last 10 years, it seems lines have been blurred with journalism and editorial and people having their opinion, or we see different stories, different things in the news where race is brought into it by the media or the interviewer, where that's not even or not necessarily a factor.
Right.
Don't create something. And I majored in journalism, so even though I never worked with a media organization or newspaper after
Right.
college, I know the tricks to their trade, and one of their
Right.
tricks is, in a headline, make it a question.
Mhm.
Was it racism that caused uh, you know uh, uh, Lamont Grant to get hit by a car,
Right.
last week? They make it in the form of a question because it's either not true or hasn't been proven, and you can't be sued for asking a question, only for making a statement.
Sure.
So that's just one thing that I learned about. The root of all evil is the love of money.
For sure.
That's why you have sensationalism and trying to make things, trying to get attention to make money.
Yeah, and our system right, we spend a lot of time justifying it based on, did it make money? Okay, it was harmful, but did it make money? Yes, that headline you spoke about was harmful, but hey, you can justify it because hey, the business is supposed to make money, so therefore
Yeah.
it's justifiable. And now we're stuck with having to work around that. And instead, we could build a level of peace and enjoyable culture that doesn't have that happening, but also we can, still have a market space and exchange
Yeah.
energy and whatnot. So I agree with you.
Yeah. And well, go ahead. Is there anything else that's in your book that you want to emphasize at this time?
So one of the things, and step one is don't take a step, right? We're so eager sometimes once we find something or we want to make change, and we don't recognize that we may not have the tools. We may have been lied to quite a bit throughout our lifetime to get us to this point, to have these aha moments where we want to see something different, and we don't have the tools yet. So we need to seek understanding before we go out, because otherwise you can make a continuous harmful situation worse, even though your intention is to do better. You just don't know, right? And so some of it is really examining and acknowledging the harm of our culture beyond just the racism, the manipulation we do to food, for the drug industry to have, people addicted to legal, prescription drugs, the things that we do to the environment, to the lack of social interaction. Now we're more fearful of each other. We're more angry. Like the things that we can do to heal some of that and acknowledge how that harm is also part of the same culture that started a racist system.
Yeah, and I would say or remind people that the biggest drug dealers in America are the doctors and
Yeah.
pharmacists.
Mm.
And it's true, and it's legal, so we don't look at it the same way. But there are more people in America addicted to prescription drugs than coke, heroin, and all the illegal
Mhm.
drugs put together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people need to know that going in. I always try to search for a more natural remedy that I can do for whatever is ailing me, because
I,
it's a last resort to
I
put something
speak about that
made
in
in a
my book.
lab in my
Right.
body.
I speak about that in my book. We need to reconnect ourselves to the planet because the planet gives us everything that our bodies need for that. I've been plant-based for 19 years now,
Wow.
so I'm very familiar with and very much with what you're saying.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Right, and then let's go to I want to hear what you have to say about reparations. And I know that there are a few different kinds or possible forms of reparations. This is something that's been talked about for decades. And so, let's just have a conversation about that. I guess
Sure.
first in what form, and then uh if this is for Black people, then how would you implement it? And then for people like Mahomes and Kaepernick, who is one side of their family, that's another element. And
Right.
just like what's your plan or your ideas about figuring that out and just having some kind of a comprehensive plan.
Okay. So before we get to the plan, I think that it's important to understand, to me, and how I define racism was defined by Claude Anderson, Dr. Claude Anderson. I don't know how familiar you are with him, but he's talked about racism is a race to control resources, right? It's much more about resource control and bigotry and prejudice and discrimination. Those are all components used and tools used to do so, but the idea is still to be able to control resources. And if you look at the Black community per population, there is the least amount of control over the resources, and so much has been built on Black talent, whether it's from slavery days to and I say talent, not just work, right? We didn't, as white folks, didn't teach Black people how to farm and then had them go out. We brought them in because they were farmers. They
Okay.
understood we needed them to be. So we always valued them. It was a matter of how do we capture the value monetarily for our own gain. And it's time that we start to share that things and start to recognize how systemically we have used and continued to, whether it's through eminent domain of taking Black communities where there was home ownership and building highways through those communities, polluting those areas, whether it's discriminating against them in FHA loans and VA loans, where we started to get a lot of our wealth from as in a more massive capacity, whether it's the drug and and the war on crime and the unfair and unequal punishments and the targeting of Black communities, whether it's when white flight moves out and we take the resources and then they are stuck with our government controls and lack of sharing of those same resources. So since the time, there is a reason to repair the harm that has been done. And I talk about it in the sense of, let's say I was walking across the street and I was run over by a car purposely, right? And now my leg injured, my back's injured, my head has head trauma. Again, going back to the idea of I don't want us to take a step until we've gained some understanding. The idea that I'm laying on the street, I don't want you to touch me and try and move me because you could do more damage to me, right? However,
Right.
there are experts. I also don't want you to go sit there, see me get injured and go, well, I didn't do it, so I'm not calling the ambulance, right? It's something valuable in it for you to be a part of this healing process. And if we do not heal something that's been intentionally harmed, then how does it heal on its own? If we have a competitive society and we keep moving the goalpost because the rest of us are able to have access to these resources and succeed, how do we justify and just use those things? Well, it's no longer racist, it's about capital. Well, they need the capital to be repaired in order to do so. So going back to me lying on the ground there, what if somebody does call the ambulance and the ambulance comes and says, well, I don't, I didn't do it, so I don't need to repair this thing, right? I don't need to help you, and the doctors along the way. So we have this whole system that could repair, and we're not doing it. And so what happens eventually, people are going to go, hey, you're laying in the middle of the street. I need to drive. Please get out of my way. And they're going to ask me to pick myself up by my bootstraps, which is what we do, and get out of the way. Well, if I start to move and I have injuries, I can make myself more injured because now I'm overcompensating and I'm angry and I'm whatever, hurt and all of these things. And as I'm moving to get out of the way for the rest of society to continue, I'm still being left unattended to and I'm injuring myself even more. And so until we see the value that as a society, as a human being society, that we
Yes.
can come and actually be a part of the repair and see that as something valuable for all of us, right? Black folks throughout this entire time have never massively said, let's go just burn down a white church, no matter how many Black churches were burnt down. Have never said, let's go burn down and bomb a village, no matter how many Black Wall Street and other villages, right? So the idea that they're not as capable as us is one of the narratives, that they're angrier and more violent. That's been us, that's our society. We could learn so much more from having a reparative process. Now, you asked specifically, what happens if somebody is of mixed race or whatever. I say, why do we have to get the repair right if the harm has been done so wrong? We have not been so careful in our harm. Let's just get into the idea of repair. And that's beyond the check. That's psychologically, let's prepare ourselves to value the interactions we can have. Let's embrace the fact that there's a different culture that could actually show us how to treat the earth better, how to share the earth better, how to enjoy life better, right? The barbecue. We want to be invited to the barbecue. Let's repair so that we can all share space at the barbecue. Let's learn ourselves in the humanitarian side of things, and there will be a change in our own energy that will be valuable. And that is part of what Race for What's goal for reparations is all about.
And would you say that some of the healing that needs to take place and the repair that needs to happen is emotional and mental?
Without a doubt.
Because, neither one of us have ever been slaves. We have to use our imagination
Right.
and think, from what we've seen portrayed in movies and what we've read, just imagine what it would be like. Everybody's felt pain, even though may have not felt a whip. And so, just from the foundation of being human property,
Right.
and regardless of what had happened, because I'm sure there's 1,000 different stories and experiences for it. Just in Black culture, something that is true is that we feel a connection, and that other Black people, if something happens to them, maybe 2,000 miles away or maybe 100 years ago, we can absorb that and empathize with it, and almost, take our minds back to like the story in Rosewood, with the slaughter at that city in Florida. It's just what I'm thinking is that a part of having to heal and move forward is dealing with, if you want to call it trauma, or just whatever may be adding stress to us or causing us to be. I don't want to be prejudiced against any people today that had nothing to do with from a couple hundred years ago. We've all heard about white guilt, or people like Benedict Cumberbatch. His ancestors were slave owners, but there's nothing he could do about that. So I guess a part of that is like drilling down to the individual. I feel like the main purpose of knowing history is to learn from it, to learn what to do and what not to do, what works and what doesn't work.
Right. The problem with the way we were taught history, and I want to go back to what you were saying earlier, but the problem with how we're taught history is we're not really taught the why people made those decisions. We're just taught about the what. So then it's hard to not repeat those things, because that's all the information we've been giving is what. So it's almost like we might change a shirt and think we've done something different with our lives, but we're still the same person going out into the world. We just got on a red shirt instead of a gray shirt or whatever it is. And so that's the way we're taught history. There's not enough sociology or psychology taught in the way that we learn about our history, so we can learn about how to make different decisions. Now, going back to the healing part, yes, you brought up a second part of me being the person that's been run over. It's still on me, just like it's still on Black folks, to be a part of the healing process, right? So I have to go and rehabilitate my body in that sense. And there's pain involved in the rehabilitation process. Anybody, right?
Sure.
So, and even before we get to that, there's going to be pain because we have to operate. And operating means I got to tear into muscles and skin and all of this to get to a place to even prepare. So, the things get worse before they get better kind of scenario. As white folks and other people, we need to be aware of that pain is going to exist. We need to be aware that things may look worse in the beginning before they get better as we go through the change process. That we emotionally are ready for this. That we are emotionally, there's setbacks. You're working out, you're trying to strengthen your bones and your muscles again, and you think you're doing great and you do too hard, and now you got a setback and you may even need another surgery, whatever that process is. We have to be aware that that's going to happen. I know when I go into to do certain things and I meet new people, I may say something that I don't intend to be. I have a different definition in how it's received. They may cuss me out. I'm okay if we can work through that, and I can apologize and be forgiven and show that I'm still here to try and bring help to the situation. We can work through that, and the strength of that bond becomes stronger, right? When we tear in our muscles, when you give them a chance to breathe again, they strengthen and reconnect again. We can do those things together as humans and see a true value from a humanistic standpoint in that level of exchange and caring for one another and sharing. Because even though there was a great philosopher, Jacques, somebody started the Venus Project, but he said it's because it's human nature to, say, steal from somebody or cheat somebody or try to be greedy or all these things. We didn't have to build the systems around that. There's also human nature to share with each other, to support one another, to care for one another. to, serve one another. We could build our systems around that. And so that's part of the change that I hope the reparations process allows us to not only repair, but also change the system so that we all can share in this world that has an abundance of everything we need to have healthy, loving, comfortable, exciting, enjoyable lives.
Yes, yes. And what I would like to see, and I don't think this is too lofty a goal, is for this to be the kind of country where the harder you work, the more you are rewarded. Anything that gets in the way of that, we need to eradicate. Because someone who's working hard, and when I say working hard, I don't mean just physically working or
Right.
doing what you're told on a job, but learning, willing
Right.
to learn education and learn skills, and they can make a vow to stay out of trouble.
Right.
You know,
And I would add that even the work that we do needs to improve our quality of life, not just be work, right? Like there's
yes,
people out there in hedge funds making day trades all day long. That's not improving anybody's life. Quality of life is not being impacted by that. And really the only potential quality of life is that if there's some cheating or shifting of things going on that could affect our ability to get resources that we need, then it's negatively impacting that. So I want not only us to work, but us to make sure that our work is about improving our qualities of life.
sure, sure. And then, we're not holding political office or, part of Congress, but are there uh are there people that you know of that are in place in different cities or, in our congressional system that are speaking these things, or not just saying, sometimes people just say the result. I want people to have this or things to be this way, but you have to have a bridge to get there. Somebody really trying to come up with a plan. For an example, Andrew Yang, somebody he didn't get very far,
Right.
but he came up with a universal basic income and nobody really wanted to listen to him. I'm a conservative, but understand the way he was saying that was saying everybody would get it.
Right.
And I don't know if this is everybody that's paying taxes. If it is, that's definitely fair. And then he was talking about the psychology of how when you don't have to worry about paying your rent, you can put your mind on other things. Like
How
people
about
have talked about this, like that have broken through and gone to, an income where it wasn't an issue. It's like a weight and a burden lifted,
for
but
sure?
they're you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's hard to focus on the bootstraps sometimes or, doing what may need to get done. If you just look at homeless people
Right.
and the threat of being out on the street, it's hard
Yeah.
to put a plan together and you have to, just we are
Right.
we
You have
are
to
a
find where
wealthier.
the restroom is. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
literally, I slept in my car for 6 months in Los Angeles
really.
before moving back home. I mean, it's hard to, and at least I had a car and I could go around, and there is a level of freedom, so to speak, but there is a weight when you have to figure out where to take a dump, right?
Yeah,
And that takes time, that takes energy away from me thinking of how can I be the best, whatever my skill set is at the
right.
time. And so, there's this idea that this type of system that we have encourages us to go be the best we can be. And I think I've seen so many people who don't have the resources but have beautiful product ideas that they've developed. But then the only way to make those products into something bigger is to give them over to someone who has money, and that's the reason, right? And then they get the ownership of it instead. And so what does that person do? That person keeps that product from the rest of us because
Right.
they don't have the resources to build it into their own business. And that's difficult, right? There's a level of, I get it that in a marketplace we want to, we want people to come and bring something to the table and be valuable and be encouraged to bring work. There also has to be a level of support. And I don't think that that can that takes away from it, from the amount of work that people would want to do. I still want to do work and be supported, right? I still want to
Yes.
be comfortable. I still want to have my needs met and be able to go out for dinner when I want to and all of that. I don't need to be as greedy as, having a rocket that'll take me up to space and that nature. That just doesn't, right? So there's just a level of comfort and support that we can build for one another. And I'm glad you mentioned Andrew Yang. He definitely was somebody I like because we need a shift in our psychological and emotional approach towards this life that we have right now.
Yes. Yes. So, okay.
So
All right.
you want to talk about Nelly?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely do. And why don't at this time just mention the name of the book again and
Yeah,
where people can, just a
sure.
quick websites or where people can go to get it
Okay.
so that they'll know. And then
The
we'll
name of the
mention
book,
again at the end.
thank you. The name of the book is Race for What, and the website is raceforwhat.com. It's FOR what, not the number four, but raceforwhat.com. And you can follow me on my social media links through there. There's a phone number to reach me. There's email there as well. All of the information for contacting me and following what I'm doing. There's blogs. There's the 7 steps. There's my story. I can be brought on as a speaker. And all of those things are available through the website. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, yeah, everybody, make sure you go to the website. And I like it when people have a plan.
Yeah.
And so he has something laid out, as y'all heard. He's educated in sociology and, not just something that we put together, but he's obviously done a lot of research on this. So yeah, as we mentioned at the beginning, he's from St. Louis, the
Yeah.
same hometown of Nelly, and then found out before you came on the show that you knew him. So
Yeah.
how did you meet him, and just talk about your friendship with him for a minute?
So for those that can see the cover of the book, it is my high school prom picture from me and my best friends. I am from afar the most identifiable one on the picture. Next to me, though, kneeling is Nelly, and we grew up as best friends. Starting off in high school, he moved to University City from the city of St. Louis in our 7th grade year. So we kind of ran into each other, but through my best friend and him playing basketball and sports, my best friend we moved next to their house when I was 4 years old. So I've been part of their family since for what's
Cool.
that, 45 years now. And so Nelly came over quite a bit to my house and to my best friend's house in the summer between 8th grade and going into high school. And
Right.
from that point, we kind of started hanging out every day. And he and I became very close, as did I become with about 5 or 6 others. And they were really part of our inner circle. And as I was going through high school and he was trying out for sports and working on his craft as an artist, he was always the most talented person, whether it was football, baseball, basketball. Like if you wanted to be the best, you definitely were going to have to beat him at some point in that sport, right? And because of his height, baseball, we thought he was going to be Ozzie Smith replacement at shortstop for the Cardinals. He was super fast. He had a great jump shot in basketball, kind of an AI type of figure, real fast again. And then he was our wide receiver, our punt returner or kickoff. No, I think punt returner and cornerback. So he was everything in sports, and he could sing and dance and everything. So anything you wanted to be talent wise, we knew he had that star like it factor quality.
And
Um,
he's shown some of those skills in his videos and in movies.
yeah,
Because when he first came out with that video that was filmed in St. Louis, and he was dribbling the basketball and just showing his skill with that. And then
yeah,
I remember him in the Longest Yard movie, where
yeah,
he was playing football, and
yeah,
just you could see the gracefulness and and
Right.
his athleticism.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this. I didn't know how old he was. Years ago, he was on a reality show, and my daughter mentioned that this girl who was on the show was his daughter or his
Yeah.
stepdaughter,
Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
was like 19. And
Uh-huh.
when she said that, I was like, well, he's too young to have a daughter, 19. What?
Yeah.
And so then we looked it up, and he was like, close to 40 at the time.
Yeah.
So we're talking about diet, and you said you eat plant-based foods, and so
Mhm.
some of it is genetics, but
Right.
I think that he's doing something right. He's definitely
Yeah.
taking care of himself because he's got to be close to 45
No,
or
he
older
he
now.
turns 50 this month, in
Man,
November, in less than a month from now.
see, he
Yeah.
could do a tour just talking to people about how to stay young,
Right.
and of course it's a combination of getting good exercise and
Mhm.
your diet, and then what a lot of people sleep on, no pun intended, to get enough rest.
Right. Yeah.
That's a real blessing.
And so, yeah, his daughter, I used to teach her tennis when she was 2.5 years old till about when she was 5. And then his career took off, and I became his business manager for the first
Oh,
4 years of that. At the highest level, I helped him start up uh, Apple Bottoms Clothing, his other clothing
I
line.
remember that.
I was somewhat of a part of. And then I formalized his or departmentalized his management company. We did in-house touring. We did in-house merchandise.
Oh,
We were very entrepreneurial at that time.
that's great. That's great. And I know we were talking about using wealth and resources and helping other people, not being too extravagant and wasting stuff. But it is good. I noticed that also with Jay-Z. He said he wanted to do with his artists is teach them
Mm-hmm.
how to be owners.
Mm-hmm.
We heard that Rihanna, she became worth $1 billion a couple of
Right.
years ago. And so if she's worth $1 billion, I'm thinking Kanye is too.
Yeah.
But they have businesses outside of the music.
Yeah.
And you know how people can be taken advantage of in the music business by their labels or whatnot. So that's a good thing. The more
Yeah.
you have, the more you can share. And I guess I'll end with this: is it's better to instead of giving somebody a fish, to teach them how to fish.
Sure.
Then you know how to fish. I can kind of leave you and go teach some other people,
Right.
and not have to keep coming back. And it's just, to me, there's a part of growing and expanding,
And
and
we
and
can
people being self-sufficient.
and we can do it as a community so that you're fishing and then I'm, a carpenter. And so you're, helping to feed my family and I'm helping to house yours. And there's so many things that we can do together that if we
Yeah.
can break, while we do need to keep our individualism and respect one another individually, we don't have to think only as individualistic so that we can
Yes.
share in this beautiful planet that there's 8 billion people of, or whatever, however many still,
Yeah.
that we weren't meant to be at this alone. And so
Yes.
that's part of the boundaries we're looking to break.
And I would like to see every block have one or two gardens
Yes,
where Sally Mae around the corner is growing in her backyard, that the other people on
for,
the block can come and buy food from her.
for sure,
The best, most natural, organic, fresh food you can
for
have.
sure.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean that's
We,
something. I mean, just that's not far fetched. If
no,
there's 9 houses on my block. Most blocks have more than that. If there's one garden on each block, I mean, the money we'd save
mm,
from having to go to the grocery store and literally keeping it in the community.
yeah,
And then, hopefully she would go, or those people with those vegetables, they'd receive that money and then patronize other people in the
right,
same community.
sure. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why this whole idea that anybody is starving right now, it's because we misuse land so much. I drive
Right.
in the Midwest, I can't go very far without running into a cornfield or a soybean field. Well,
Yeah.
What if that was broccoli and cauliflower and beans and, fruits and, there's so much that could be used for to just feed us locally that we don't need
Yeah.
to. And a lot of the products made from the soy and the corn are just causing us too much harm, causing the world too much harm. So we can do
Yeah.
that. We can shift it. It's really simple to live life according to the plan and how it works.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes. All right. Hey, we're gonna wrap it up here. This is JD Massis on the show. Excuse me. And again, his book, Race for What? And he mentioned the website. Look for his book. He also does traveling to speak at different.
Yes.
Yeah, check him out. Check him out and go to his website. And thank you. Thank you for being on the show and sharing this. You've educated a lot of people, including myself, with some new perspectives and goals that
Well,
people can go after.
thank you for offering me the time and space on your platform.
All right, you're welcome. You're welcome. Take care, everybody. We'll catch you on the next episode.